Hey everyone, I'm Adrian, I'm your instructor. I'm going to be going over the instructor-led Lab 1.0, which is all about setting up your laptop and your monitor, which is super simple, but to actually describe it is not quite as simple as you think. So we want to show you all the things you got to do to actually connect the laptop and the monitor, but then be able to describe it in a technical way, because as you learn, a lot of what the value you can paint for the customer is in describing everything in incredible detail and using all the buzzwords that we all love so much. So in a simple summary, you're going to have this laptop. You're going to, if you already haven't, find your mouse, and you're going to plug the mouse into your USB port, which is very straightforward, and I'm sure most of y'all have done that before. And then of course you're going to have the ability to see your mouse instead of this touchpad, which isn't always as easy to navigate. So as you're doing these labs, it's just easier to use a mouse. And then you've got your monitor, of course, which is an adjustable monitor. So you want to just acquaint yourself with the fact that you can move it up and down. It's also really cool. You can flip it over like this, so that if you ever wanted to actually even view something horizontally instead of vertically and vice versa, you can do that. So that's just kind of a quick overview. We're going to be connecting the monitor to the laptop so that you can gain extra real estate, as they call it in the IT biz, which is really silly, but really it's just saying that you'll have extra screen so that you can move, for example, a web page over to here and view it on this screen while you do something else over here. And specifically for the training, what you'll be doing is you'll be watching videos on this screen and then taking notes on this screen, or doing the exercise on that screen on the laptop itself, so that you can actually pause the video here and be able to do things over there. And otherwise it's kind of clunky, because you have to, like, you know, basically split screen on a small screen like this, and then you don't get as much space. So it's just way, way better if you can actually move the video onto this screen and gain that extra real estate. So that's it. We're going to be showing you how to actually configure it in just a second. Flipped over like I showed you before. First thing I'm going to do is take this cable out. So you're going to have to unscrew it with these things called thumb screws, because everything has a term in IT, of course. So you take it out. This is a VGA cable, and I'm going to take it out just to kind of show you all of the ports that are on this monitor. So you have a couple different USB ports, which are essentially a USB hub, so you can do things like connect a phone to it, you could connect an external USB stick to it, or a USB drive, things of that nature. So it's just in case you run out of ports on your actual laptop, you can use the monitor as a USB hub. Then you have the VGA port here, which will generally be blue. It's also called a DVI port, or a VGA port. Then you have your DVI port over here, which is usually white. And as you can see, it's obviously bigger. So really that's the only two types of actual video ports that you have. USB is just for attaching external devices. You can't actually just simply connect a USB cable between a monitor and a computer and get video output. So these are your only two video ports. And this is onboard. So people will refer to this as natively supported, as in it's just built in, or onboard. So built in, onboard, and native is the same thing. So at this point, we're looking at this monitor and we've determined there's only two different video outputs, right? VGA or DVI. So then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look and see what the laptop has, right? Because the whole point is to connect the laptop to the monitor. So now we're looking at our laptop. Obviously we're looking at the side of it. So you've got your VGA port right here. and you can see it's got a little icon of a monitor. You've got your network port right there, or your Ethernet port, and you've got a USB port, which I think most people have seen the USB port. You can actually see there's an icon that's distinctly a USB icon. So you want to get used to noticing those little things. And next to the Ethernet, you've got the symbol for an Ethernet, which really looks like, you know, two little computers connected on a wire. So monitor, Ethernet, USB, and then here, notice if you look closely, there's a D written right there, and that stands for DisplayPort, which is a separate type of video connector. It looks sort of similar to a HDMI connector, but it's a little bit bigger. So it looks similar to an HDMI, but it's actually a completely different thing. So if you were to look at your laptop, it's got the VGA connector, and it's got the DisplayPort right here. So it's got two different types of video options. The monitor, if you recall, had a VGA and a DVI connector. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to notice that the only thing in common between the laptop and the monitor is the VGA connector. So you would call that the lowest common denominator. So the lowest common denominator is your VGA port. So the easiest thing for me to do would be to actually connect a VGA cable, which we'll cover shortly. Alright, so at this point we're ready to actually connect the VGA cable. So I just want to cover one thing real quick. If you look at the cable, you have to have a way of clearly describing the cable. So this end right here is referred to as a male end. This end is also a male end, so this would be a VGA male to male cable. And it would in turn connect to the female connector on the monitor and the laptop respectively. So it's useful for things like if you're ordering cables and things like that. You can't just say, hey, I need a VGA cable, because there are different types of VGA cables that are both male and female for different purposes. So you need to have a way to distinctively say, I need a male to male 4-foot or 6-foot cable, for example. So that's part of the reason why there are all these terms for every single thing in IT, is because you got to have a way to easily describe it. So next we're going to actually connect them in the next video. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to connect one end. So the male end goes to the female end on the monitor. You're going to press it in, and these are thumb screws, so you don't want to just ratchet the hell out of it. You want to just turn it enough to where it's secure, and that's it. They're intended to be able to be removed easily. And then the other side, which is the male end, to the female end of the laptop. And again, you're just going to press it in gently and just screw them in just enough so it's secure. And that's it. So you've now connected them. I'm going to go ahead and turn the monitor and the laptop over so that you can actually see them. So at this point, if we press the power button on the monitor, you can see that I have now extended my screen, but this is referred to as mirroring. So I'm seeing exactly the same thing on this screen and this screen, which is useful for specific things. So for example, let's say I was training someone and I wanted them to be able to view exactly what I was doing, so I didn't want them gawking over my shoulder. So I would then, for example, turn this monitor this way and have someone sitting over there and watch exactly what I was doing. So that could be useful for certain things, but if you're trying to gain extra real estate, like we've talked about, where you want the ability to have, let's say, a video playing over here and do the exercise over here, or simply just have an additional web page over here, you really want to do what's called extending the monitor. So at this point, you're going to right click with the mouse on the desktop, and you're going to go to display settings. And you can hit this identify button right here, which kind of just shows you that it's 1 and 2, but basically at this point just mirroring. So you want to scroll down and you want to get to the multiple displays section. So right now it says duplicate, right? So duplication and mirroring is the same thing. So instead you're going to click down here and you're going to go to extend these displays. So at this point, in case you screw something up, notice there's this timer. You can always revert, but I actually want to keep these changes, so I'm going to click Keep Changes. So at this point, I really do have the benefit of having an additional screen now. So I can go ahead and, for example, open up a web page, and I can move it over this way. So at this point I can maximize this over here, and it's not taking up valuable space over here. I can, for example, open up a notepad and take notes on whatever was going on over here. So that's the entire point of extending. Now, depending on how you prefer things, some people prefer to scroll from left to right or right to left to have the mouse actually go between the laptop and the screen. So if you want to adjust that, you can right click on the desktop again, go to display settings, and notice actually you've got now monitor 1 and monitor 2, and you can click identity and it'll show you this is 1 and the other one is 2. But if you want to change the way that the scrolling works, you just have to actually move these around. So you could go like that, and then apply, and now you can scroll the other way around if you wanted to. Oops. So, which, it just depends on what you prefer. I think most people prefer to just scroll left to right, so it just depends on your preference. So at this point you've got the display set up to extend, and the next thing we want to do is we want to do a couple of things to customize the desktop. So for example, I think that this is pretty boring, so I want to make the background be something different. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to actually right click and do personalize, and I'm going to just change the picture. So for example, I just love this guy running on the beach, so I'm going to click that. You could also browse if you had a picture, let's say, of your family or whatever. You could browse and, scroll over to the desktop or wherever it was. You could pick any of these files, a JPEG file, a bitmap, or whatever you want, and you could pick that. But for me, this guy running on the beach is just exactly what I want, so there we go. Or actually, it's a woman running on the beach. So that's something pretty straightforward. Sometimes you'll also want to change your resolution. So Windows 10 is pretty darn good at automatically detecting the right resolution. So this is a pretty common resolution that you'll see on newer monitors. But let's say for some reason you've got a user that is maybe needing to see the icons larger. So let's say they have poor eyesight, you could actually, let's say, move this to 1024 by 768. So again, it'll let you revert if you didn't like it, but I'm just going to say keep changes. So if you look, the icons are much bigger, but at the same time you lose some of the usable screen, but you kind of have to pick your poison, right? So do you want to see the icons bigger, or do you want to have more screen space? So there's always a give and take. Every time the icons are bigger, that just eats up your space that you could have used to, put icons out here, but you just have to pick your poison at that point. So just know that you can do that. So I'm going to go ahead and set my resolution back to the recommended one, which is right here. And I'm going to keep changes. And notice now the icons are smaller, I have more space. So that's basically it. That's the gist of being able to customize your monitor and be able to either mirror your screen or extend your screen.